Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Sufficient Grace. I'm Pastor Jason, and this is not an encouraging word, but I came on here real quick to share an announcement with you. Sufficient Grace now has a YouTube channel, and I'm not going to encourage you to go on YouTube and type in Sufficient Grace in the search bar, but because if you do, then you're going to go and it's going to bring up videos to all kinds of Sufficient Grace videos and Amazing Grace and all kinds of videos about grace, and you could be scrolling for a while to find any of the encouraging words. But if you go down to the link below, there's that link, and you just follow that link, and it'll take you right to the Sufficient Grace YouTube channel, as well as if you go to the Sufficient Grace contact information and you push that and you follow that link, that'll take you right to the Sufficient Grace YouTube channel. So I want to encourage you that if you want to go and have an access and watch some of the older encouraging words, I would encourage you to do so, as well as subscribe to the channel. And so we are now on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel for Sufficient Grace, and so follow the links either below or in the contact information on the Sufficient Grace page, and you should be able to go and subscribe and get all the notifications for whenever the encouraging words are ready to be viewed. So with that in mind, I am here because I also felt that God wanted me to share a brief devotional with you, and He wanted me to share this devotional with you called "Don't Be Ashamed of Your Past." But before I do that, I want to read the scriptures. And the first scripture is from Genesis chapter 50, looking at verse 20. And it says, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring about this present result, to preserve many people alive." So don't be ashamed of your past. You know, we all have a past. We have a past of something that you went through, something you did or was done to you. So often we make excuses or put limitations on God or on ourselves of why we can't serve God and why He can't use us. And our past is not to be ashamed of our past. We're not to be ashamed of our past, but we're to allow God to use it for His honor and glory. But I want to share with you the other scripture, which is 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 16. "But if anyone suffers as a Christian, he is not to be ashamed, but is to glorify God in this name." So all of us have a past of something, whether it's something good, something bad, ugly, whatever the case might be. We all have gone through a past and have a past of something that has happened to us or said to us or done to us, or we went through something. We all have a past. But there are men and women of God in the Bible that God used despite their past. And I'm going to give you a quick list of that, of who they are. Okay? Abraham was old and a liar. Elijah was suicidal. Joseph was abused. Moses had a speech problem and he was a murderer. Gideon was afraid. David was an idolater and a murderer. Saul, which we now know as Paul, persecuted Christians. He was a persecutor of Christians. But you may say, you might come across this video, this devotional, and you might say, "I can't serve God," or "God can't use me because of," whatever that might be. I want to encourage you today to stop trying to hide your past. But instead of trying to hide our past, I want to give you 3 quick things. Okay? Number 1 is stop focusing on your past, because your past doesn't define who you are. Okay? If you are ashamed of your past, then you are ashamed of what God has done in you. And we can't be ashamed of what God has done in us, but we got to focus on what God has done for us and how he's brought us through whatever we've been through in our past. Okay? So we got to focusing on your past just gives the enemy a foothold to win the battle. And I've talked in past encouraging words about this, that as Christians, we can't be defeated. We can't allow the enemy to win the battle, but we got to be victorious, not because of us or who we are or what we can do, but because of Christ and what he did for us, and that Christ is the victorious king. Okay? So number 1, stop focusing on your past. 2, it's a platform to declare God's grace. Okay? What you've been through in your past is a platform for you to declare God's grace, to declare the grace of God. So God brought you through with victory. But without God, you would be a mess. But it's that but God, and that is the key thing here, is the but God. If it wasn't for God, you would not be where you are today. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for God. But the but God moment, the things that we've been through, the things that you've gone through, it was hard, it was tough, it was painful, it was messy, but God brought you through whatever you've been through in your past, whatever was said to you, whatever was done to you, whatever you went through. But God brought you through whatever that was. And by God's grace, you made it through. Because like I emphasize all the time in the encouraging words, I emphasize that God's grace is sufficient and enough to get you through whatever it is that you've gone through. And so whatever your past is, I want to encourage you that today, God's grace is sufficient and enough to get you through. And use your past not to focus on it, not to be ashamed of it, but to allow it to be a platform to declare God's grace. That but God. Okay? And then number 3, your past reveals God's power. The but God moments. God's awesome power is revealed in your life in the things that you've gone through in the past. Or maybe you're in a current situation now, and it's a but God moment that is getting you through, knowing that God's grace is sufficient and enough to get you through whatever that you might be facing or whatever you have faced in the past. It's that but God moment. So, something you could not have made it through, but God and his grace showed up and brought you through. So, we've all been through a past. It was hard, it was tough, it was painful. But we had that but God moment. But God, and I made it through. I had a but God moment, and I struggled with learning as a child. I had learning challenges and struggles, and I was told I would never make it past 3rd grade level. I was educationally retarded, and I had ADD and would never make it past 3rd grade level. And here I am today, doing what I'm doing, and I would not be where I am today without God. That's that but God moment in my life, because today I have gone through Bible college, 4 years of Bible college, and I have two college degrees, and as well as I'm an ordained minister, and God has led me and opened doors to start Sufficient Grace, and I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for God to bring me through those learning struggles and those learning challenges that I faced as a child. And being made fun of in school, being picked on, bullied by kids, and and God brought me through all that. And without God, I wouldn't have had the success that I've had. But by God's grace is enough that he brought me through to where I am today. And I also want to encourage all of you with that. If you tune into this video, I want you to be encouraged. The but God moment, even if you're facing something right now in this current time, that but God, and that God's grace is sufficient and enough to bring you through. Because we can't be ashamed of our past, but rather use it as a platform to declare God's grace and to reveal His power in your life. So, you know, and just past year, my wife we've gone through a cancer journey with my wife, and we've gone through a lot of the different things that entails of a cancer treatment with surgeries and treatments and everything, but God. And here she is a year and a half later, and she still is alive, and she's doing well and recovering, you know. And it's that but God moment, you know. Yeah, but God, you know. She may not have made it. I may not have made it. Maybe some of you who watch this video may not have made it if it wasn't for God. But God's grace is sufficient and enough, and He used this to not be ashamed of what you've been through in the past or what you may be going through currently, but use it as a platform to declare God's grace and His power. And God's grace is enough to get you through. We'll see you next time.